Leave it to Cindy.
What can I say?
Andrew, would you like to lead us in Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome everyone to the Shawnee County Board of County Commissioners. It's October 15th, 2020. Good morning.
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 On my left is Commissioner Aaron Mays, who represents District 3, and on my right is Commissioner Kevin Cook, who represents District 2. I'm Bill Rippon, and I represent District 1. Madam Clerk.
I would be the big mouth county clerk, sorry. Okay, first item under proclamations, presentations. Number 1, election office, presentation by Election Commissioner Andrew Howell.
Good morning, Commissioners. Andrew Howell, Shawnee County Election Commissioner. Just wanted to go over a little bit today, talk about our mail ballot drop box locations, as well as just some of the thinking that went into setting that up. And any questions you may have, we're happy to try to entertain. As you know, we've got a record number this year. So I want to talk just a little bit about kind of the process that we're using and talk about, quite frankly, the law requires us to make mail ballots available, and that's one of the 3 options voter have. So I just wanted to talk, since more people are using that this year, about those details. COVID-19 has impacted voters' traditional habits, their voting habits. Historic record number of, like I said, mail ballots were put in the mail yesterday, just over 23,000 here in Shawnee County. So a significant number of people are choosing that option this year. As you know, national media and some voters have raised concerns regarding advanced mail ballots and just, I think, are concerned about several different issues, and so we'll talk about those a little bit here. I've had a number of requests for a safe mechanism for direct delivery to the election office, too. There's been some concern about making sure that the ballots get through the mail system quickly enough, so we're trying to address some of those concerns as well. The considerations that we've taken, I think, into account: safety and security, making sure that people feel safe as they're voting, making sure that we've got security measures in place so that we're not taking risks with ballots being left out at locations for long periods of time without security measures in place. Additionally, just making it more convenient generally for voters to access a drop box. Part of our solution, we've got multiple scheduled locations throughout the county where people can do that. We've set up 10 mobile locations. They're scheduled twice over a 2-week period at any of those locations, and we'll show you that map here in just a second. We also have 1 consistent location across adjacent to the election office. We've had a long conversation with one of our neighbors. Mainline Printing has been very helpful, and they've got a large parking lot, and I think we could see a lot of cars through there, so we've been working very closely with them to try to put together a strategy. Additionally, I think it will help our other traffic issue that we have during presidentials in the parking lot at the election office, so the people who are coming there to vote early, sometimes 1,000 people a day, then don't have that same set of traffic congestion with people who just need to drop off their mail ballots. So we're trying to make sure that not only there are multiple locations, but that we've got 1 consistent, that should you not be able to get to any of those other 10, you've still got 1, you know where it's at, it's pretty consistently manned and located. Additionally, there's a box inside the election office, and it's going to be available starting next Monday, 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. So kind of 3 different locations and ways you can get to one. We've tried to design our mail ballot drop box program with high visibility. There'll be clearly identifiable trailer. We've got some flags to put out by the road. One of my concerns is make sure that people can actually find the location or find the drop box. So we're trying to make sure it's easy to find. And we've got additional signage. And then as for security, we're actually having it a manned location so that if people have questions about making sure that their signature is correct, make sure it's in the right envelope, all those other requirements. I think that also helps us cut down on provisionals and is better public service and better customer service as well. These are basically designed to be a drive up and drop off opportunity, and limited person-to-person contact, but we also think, like I said, it's also good customer service in that we can help people with any questions that they may have and frankly cut down on the amount of staff time that it takes after Election Day preparing for canvass. Rather than having to find people after the fact, we think it's smarter to do it up front as much as we can. It will be mobile, it will be locked, it will be secure. We'll have people of opposite parties who are manning each of these locations. There's actually 2 separate keys for each person of different parties to actually get access to all of the different pieces of this. So we've got multiple layers of security in place, which I think is important. And just a reminder, any Shawnee County voter can bring their ballot to any of these drop locations. So there is no assignment particularly. You just, whichever one's most convenient for you is certainly your opportunity to use. Here's a picture of the map. We've tried to build our drop locations, and we'll have this on the website as well as we'll go over each of the locations here shortly. We've tried to build our locations so that they're accessible and convenient to everybody. Additionally, of course, in a fairly short time frame, we've had to visit with all these folks at these different locations and get permission and get an okay to use those locations. So it's taken a little bit of time and effort to really nail it down and make sure we can get it staffed and get the parking lots functional. But these will be the locations that we're planning on using. I'll get to the next screen here. Here's our locations and schedule. In the northwest part of the county, Rossville Community Swimming Pool has a nice large parking lot I think will be effective for that part of the county. Silver Lake, we're going to use the Thriftway store kind of right there in the main drag in the center part of town. And again, what we tried to do, as you can see, we've listed times that will be the same for each week for each location. So if you can't make it the first week, you've got the same time and location for the second week. Hopefully that's convenient enough and gives people additional options and additional chances to make it to whichever one works well for them. East Topeka, the Ace Hardware at California Crossing. Central Topeka, Stormont Vale Event Center. Southeast County, Barrington United Methodist Church. Southwest County, we're going to use the former Apple Market in Auburn. North County, Sunrise Optimist Club. East County is going to be Crocos Square. West Topeka, Fairlawn Plaza. North Topeka at Sutherland's, and then the adjacent to the election office. Mainline Printing has really gone out of their way to try to help us with getting a good location that we think we can handle a lot of vehicles. So we really appreciate their help. Here's kind of here are the constituent elements. It'll be set up slightly differently, but we've tried to build a trailer that people can easily identify that it's us and that we're easy to find and see. We're not particularly promoting the Kansas City Chiefs, although the record's pretty good at the moment, so we hope that continues. And we've got the sign that says mail ballot drop box, as well as the ballot drop box itself, and then some additional flag signs just to help people find those locations should we be setting off the roadways. So I do want to give a big thank you to a number of people. County Commission, just thank you guys. You've been helpful in letting us do the things that we need to do to deal with all the kind of voting challenges related to COVID-19 this year. Secretary of State's office has been very helpful with some of these drop boxes as well. Jim Crowell, Jonathan Brazon have been helpful in doing a lot of the legal work behind the scenes fairly quickly, so appreciate that. Betty Griner signing off on a lot of the expenditures that are necessary. Tim Laurent, Parks and Rec have also been helpful in locations and trucks and things that we need. LBM Solutions actually helped us put the wrap together pretty quick. D&L Trailers gave us a great deal on the trailer. Go Blue Apparel has been helpful in getting signs. Community Pool, and then all of our locations. You know, it's taken us a while to secure locations and have conversations, so we're appreciative of each of the locations. The Thriftway in Silver Lake, Westlake Ace Hardware at California Crossing, Stormont Vale Event Center, Barrington United Methodist Church, ICI Manufacturing in Auburn, Sunrise Optimist, Croco Square, Fairlawn Plaza Mall, and Sutherland's Home off Highway 24. And again, a big special thank you to Mainline Printing. John Parker, Tom Elwood, all the people at Mainline have been very, very helpful. I'm sure it's not a big help to their business to have that much traffic through there, but they've been very helpful. They understand that an adjacent parking lot is very beneficial. It's easy for people to find, and it's large enough that it's I think, a big plus for us, and we really appreciate the time and effort that they've put into trying to help us find that location and get that up to be able to use. So I would stand for any questions. Happy to answer any questions.
Andrew, I know that safety and the security of those boxes is going to be an issue. What are we doing to make sure that they aren't stolen, vandalized, tampered with? Are we taking them in? I mean, what security measures do you have in place?
Like I said, we have 2 people of opposite parties that will be with the boxes at all times. And we also are going to keep them in the care, control, and custody of the election office trailer. And actually, they're not going to be left outside overnight. So there's a number of, I think that's one of my biggest concerns, is making sure that we're not taking any risks as it relates to just question marks about vandalism or people being able to get a hold of something with a chain and a pickup. You know, there's a lot of question marks, I think, that can occur. There really isn't time for us to do video surveillance, so it's going to be pretty much in the care, custody, and control of the election office or election office temporary employees and volunteers. But we're taking it very seriously and have a number of additional security measures to make sure that there's no question marks as it relates to what does or does not occur.
And looking past the election, I know that you and I had discussed in a meeting what these boxes may be able to be used for in other means. You want to touch on that, some of the other things that you can look forward in the future, or how it might benefit the county?
Well, the biggest reason that we're doing them at the moment, I think, is because COVID-19, I think, has a lot of people concerned about personal contact. If you're a high-risk individual, you probably need the ability to get to a box. I don't know how COVID-19 is going to look in a year, so I'm not real sure in the future how it's going to look. But we certainly have the drop boxes, and we can certainly use them in the future at some level as well.
But, I mean, in the future, would the treasurer's office be able to potentially contact you about if they wanted to have a box set out in Rossville for dropping off your tax returns or your property tax? Are other departments going to be in the future be able to use these once the election's over and done with?
I really don't know. They're actually, I think, designed for mail ballots quite specifically. And if you look at the design of it, it's going to be, I think, pretty hard to re-sticker it and relabel it. So it's possible. It certainly probably could be. I don't know that we've spent a lot of time looking at that yet. Certainly talk about it and look at it, though.
Sure. I just, anytime that we can have a spillover or have other departments for more efficiencies. But I agree that this is a good use of the mail ballot to kind of reduce that traffic into your office.
Thank you.
Look,
Go ahead. I'll go next.
I just thought, I think it's a great idea to have the trailer going around where it's manned. It looks like good security, and above all, it makes it available all over the county, and so much more secure than just putting boxes out. I like the idea.
The other thing I might add is we will actually I'll be outside, if anybody has questions and wants to come up and talk about it afterwards. We've kind of got it set up similar to what it will be. So if you want to look at it or ask additional questions, I'll certainly be available afterwards as well. So,
Thank you very much.
thank you.
Commissioner Mays.
Andrew, personally, I like the Chiefs tent. I think it's pretty cool. But could you just kind of like walk us through what happens if somebody shows up and, maybe a couple of scenarios. Let's say somebody comes and they don't even have their ballot filled out yet. What are you doing for them? Or what if they come and they say, I want to vote by mail, but I never signed up for it? What kind of things happen there?
Well, we will have additional information available for people with questions. Applications can be printed off of our website, Secretary of State's website. I'm sure we will have some available if people need them locally as well. So that wouldn't be a problem to get them that. I would encourage people to fill their ballot out and already have it in the envelope as much as possible. But if, we will have, I'm sure, a clipboard if somebody needs one to finish filling out a ballot. But it needs to be in the envelope, has to be the one that came from us. That's part of our security measures as well, to make sure that everybody only gets one and only submits one. So, but we'll walk people through those kinds of questions if they have them on site.
And will you guys like quality check them for the signatures, make sure they're ready to go before they drop them in the box?
We actually do that with both software and review in the office. So really what you're looking for at the drop boxes is to make sure that it's the correct envelope. Those envelopes are very specific, and there's actually identifying marks on a number of locations on those, so we can tell at a glance if it's ours or not. Then additionally, the actual software as well as human just verification on a computer screen from prior signatures that we're matching to as required by law will occur probably at the office.
Okay. It might be a good idea to take a couple of those tables, privacy tables that you guys use in the office out, just to make sure that if somebody does walk up and they need to fill it out, it might be good to have that available.
Okay.
Registration, was yesterday the last day for registration?
The 13th
13th,
was
so-
the last day to register
Okay.
to vote. And
All right.
we are, just so you know, we are at historic numbers. I think we're, at least as far as I know, I think we're gonna be over 116,000, and I think the last high water mark that I remember was 113,000, so we're up at least 2,000 or 3,000 for sure. So,
Okay, thank you very much.
yep, thanks.
Next item.
Item 2 under proclamations, presentations, priority dispatch, Sheriff's Office, Sheriff Hill presenting. Nope, guess not.
Good morning, Commissioners. Melanie Berger, Shawnee County Sheriff's Office, Communications Division. This morning, we'll have a brief presentation. This is in response to Sheriff Hill's presentation last Thursday when he was presenting crime stats, and some questions were asked if 911 dispatch could provide some more efficient ways to utilize our resources and distribute those calls for service. And the short answer to that is yes. We have applied for CARES Act money through the Spark grant to implement priority dispatch, and this morning I'll just briefly show you what priority dispatch can do for the 911 center. Priority dispatch provides a software called ProQA. It's a scripted call-taking software which establishes unified standards, improves emergency call-taking efficiency, and reduces liability. It also provides excellent training and certification requirements. Just a brief background on how we've laid the foundation to get to this point to be able to implement priority dispatch. In 2017, we requested and were approved for a training manager position, which was necessary to give a academy background or a academy style setting for all of our new hires. We also were requested and were approved for a call taker position. That call taker position is to assist us with call volume and triaging those calls for our emergency radio dispatchers. In 2019, we requested and were approved for a quality assurance supervisor. Those three positions were critical for us to be able to implement priority dispatch and be successful in it, because we wanted to make sure that we were going to be doing it right and using it most efficiently. This software has been discussed for the last few years with all of our partners to see the different capabilities and how it would help them as well. It is a favorable, when we meet in our communications management board, we've not heard any negative from that. So with the foundation being in place and the pandemic here, that's how we decided that we needed this sooner rather than later. And I'll kind of walk through why, with COVID, it's necessary for this. If we were to implement priority dispatch, we would look to implement all three disciplines that we currently do in our center, which would be emergency medical dispatching, emergency police, and emergency fire dispatching. Through COVID, we've not really seen an increase of our volume of calls, but more an increase of the types of calls, such as burglaries to businesses or domestic type calls. And law enforcement is currently going in blind to these scenes. And with this, we would be able to ascertain from the citizens what kind of COVID symptoms they've had, or if they've had any contact with a COVID positive patient, so that law enforcement can properly go in and meet with those citizens It also, with this software, those calls may be not necessary for a police response. We could offer them different resources such as reporting online or coming down to the law enforcement center. Sometimes it's a long time for a citizen to wait for a low priority call such as a burglary to a vehicle with no suspect information. Those calls can be taken at the police front desk or over the phone. So we would be able to put in place different response plans and look at how all of the calls and are we sending all of the resources appropriately. For the fire discipline, currently today we're sending fire to every medical call that comes through 911, no matter what type of call it is. Oftentimes the dispatcher is just getting a very brief nature code for maybe it's maybe the person says it's a heart attack, but it really ends up being, it could be a stroke. So we would be able to go through an algorithm on that screen and prompt them that this is the nature code and this is how you should respond to that, whether it's emergent or non-emergent. For an accident, for instance, fire currently sends 3 different apparatus to an accident, no matter what type of accident it is, an engine and a truck and a battalion chief. In the future, we could say that this is an accident on a parking lot with minimal injuries, and they may be able to send 1 apparatus non-emergent through town instead of us sending resources, emergent or lights and sirens through the city and county. For our EMS discipline, currently when somebody calls 911, they're met with 911, where is your emergency? We'll get the location of that, we'll verify it twice, and then when they state that it is a medical type call, we'll transfer it over to AMR. AMR then again gets their address, that must happen through their EMD process. So we have already gotten 20 to 45 seconds into this call, which we could shave off by utilizing this software. Every second counts, particularly in a medical type situation or if there's somebody that's in danger. Also with the software and implementing all 3 of these disciplines, we would get our dispatchers to have 40 hours of basic telecommunicator training, as well as in-depth training on each of the 3 disciplines that we dispatch for. They would be certified in these areas as well, and certification and training would reduce our training time and allow for a higher success rate in our training and retention of our new employees. This is an example of how the structure of what the dispatchers see on their screen, and they're gonna go through each question. As they answer these questions, the software will then shoot them into the appropriate nature code. This is going to ensure that consistent information is gathered no matter the dispatcher's level of experience. We're going to get higher accuracy on information gathered to provide to responders. And again, consistency is very important, particularly on the law side. If I take a domestic call and my partner takes a domestic call, we may ask different questions. We are currently requiring our dispatchers to memorize all of these different questions, and instead of expecting our dispatchers to take upwards of 100 calls a day and ask all the right questions without fail, we'll provide them with the structure to succeed in ensuring that our responders are getting consistent information, again, from every dispatcher. And the structure that we would put in place and the certifications, that retention of employees would be seen across the board. This does interface with our current New World computer-aided dispatch system, and it pours into our records management system, which is used in some form by all the agencies that we serve. Priority Dispatch, or ProQA, does come with Aqua, which is a quality assurance software. It is really important that we're appropriately queuing these calls. It's an enhanced QA that would build upon the QA that we already have in place in our center. It does also provide our supervisors with certified queue training. This is going to boost our morale and improve retention rates by offering constructive criticism to them and feedback. It does also allow us to ensure that appropriate COVID questions are being asked on every call for every responder. Right now, AMR is asking those COVID questions for their EMS folks, and we then get some of that information for our fire people or fire responders. And it also interfaces into our current recorder. So the interface to both New World and our NICE recorder, it wouldn't be necessary to get any new equipment. We have support by all the agencies that we serve for the software implementation, and they would benefit from its utilization. Today, we have several folks here that are in support of this. Chief Duke with Topeka Fire Department and his command staff, Captain Jamie Haltom on behalf of Chief Cochran with Topeka Police, Chief Doug Schmidt, who's the Chief of Soldier Fire and is our Rural Fire Representative for our Communications Management Board, Mickey Huber, who's the Operations Manager with AMR, and of course Sheriff Hill, who is in favor of this as well, and Under Sheriff Cooper. The reason that this would benefit each agency, for example, the response plans can be updated to correlate with the right call type. For instance, if we get a 911 call today and someone says, I'm having a headache or I'm not feeling very well, we'll transfer them over to the AMR dispatcher. Our dispatchers, as the primary PSAP, will then send first responders on a medical call or an unknown medical sick. The fire department will then send an apparatus emergency to an unknown medical call. AMR is then going through their emergency medical dispatch or EMD process to ascertain the appropriate nature of the call. So if it's a low acuity type call, maybe it's a sprained ankle, we might be able to then just utilize AMR or send an apparatus in the fire department non-emergency instead of sending more apparatus to those calls. On the law side, we're also expecting our dispatchers to memorize all of the different response plans that they have. While it is less than the fire side, for instance, if we're dispatching accident with injuries to law enforcement, that requires a patrol unit, a supervisor, and a back or two, depending on the type of accident that it is. In the future, with this software, then we would gather with all of our partners and see what type of response that they want, and the dispatchers would then be prompted. So one dispatcher doesn't do it one way and another one doesn't do it another way. And also on the law side, the different shifts and the different shift commanders having different expectations. We have had the same call types in the nature code and the way of doing business since 1997 when we consolidated. We have attempted to revamp our call types and make different priorities, and now is really a good time to do that, particularly with having a pandemic in place. Priority Dispatch offers a pandemic card set, for lack of a better term. That's what they utilize. So if we move into the future, we could have a pandemic response plan and then a regular business as usual response plans. An example of that is for the fire side. We have what's called weather mode. Right now, if we have a residential alarm or a business alarm, they'll send 2 trucks, 3 engines, and 2 running chiefs to that alarm. If we put it into weather mode, it'll send a decreased response, maybe 1 or 2 apparatus to that particular call type. So we could have a mode that we would use for a long time. Obviously, this pandemic seems to be never ending. We would use that so we could maybe send those citizens to a different resource, again, whether it be internet or coming down to the law enforcement center, so we can kind of mitigate the spread of COVID. Finally, the cost of Priority Dispatch. The total cost with our 2 interfaces, which we would need an interface with our New World and our NICE recorder, the upfront cost would be $355,528 with an annual cost of $44,813. We have applied for CARES Act money, as I said. We did receive an email back from the Sparks Committee this week saying that it has been pushed over to Whit O'Brien to determine its eligibility request. So should we not receive those fundings, we will continue to identify different funding sources to implement this necessary software, and we'll continue to update you on the progress of this project. Are there any questions?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Melanie, thank you for the presentation. I think that this is a piece of software and application that we should, as the commissioners, really give a lot of consideration to, as it does have a lot of positive aspects. And just applying a cost-benefit analysis, obviously we have a pretty hefty price tag of $355,000 plus our $44,000 annual cost. Mm-hmm. That's our cost. But are we going to have a benefit that will outweigh that cost by being able to send the right equipment and the right resources to an event?
So Commissioner, also not only just sending the appropriate resources, utilizing those resources much more efficiently is obviously a bonus for every agency, city versus county as well. But this also gives the dispatchers tools to give life-saving instruction prior to a response to the location. Particularly in a very rural environment, while the rural fire departments are strategically placed depending on call volume, AMR's response to the rural areas is a little bit longer. So this will provide our dispatchers with the ability to give them CPR instructions, any type of pre-arrival type instructions to ensure that they get the appropriate help, whether there's hands-on at the scene.
Okay. Well, and I think that, you gave the example of a sprained ankle and then having an apparatus show up at that scene. That seems like that would be a very costly endeavor when really maybe all we need is just for AMR to be able to respond to that.
Yes.
Now, through the program, are we going to see a lot more of the automation being able to walk the call taker through what the appropriate next step is, and is that going to help the hiring process?
Yeah, so, if you look at centers across the nation, they're either moving to this or they already have it in place. I actually foresee this being a mandate of some sort of a scripted type situation in the next few years. So as far as the hiring goes, right now we're giving our new hires, we're inundating them with all of the information. We've done it for years. We've changed our hiring process, and it was really time to look at the job itself. And putting them through a 40-hour class that's going to give them basic training that is certified and meets national standards. Then we're going to give them a script. Even after training, they're going to have a script that they follow. There's still going to be some common sense and thinking that's necessary, but this is going to give them the tools to be more successful in their training process so we can hold on to those folks that we've hired. We see about a 50 to 60% retention rate of everybody we hire, and with this, that would also increase it. Putting the academy in place and the things that this commission has approved has been beneficial, but this is just that next step in holding on to our folks and getting the appropriate training to keep them.
In the past, we've had a relationship with, partnership with Washburn Tech, where they were actually offering training courses to help people be prepared to enter into dispatch upon graduation from Washburn Tech. Would we anticipate having that same sort of cooperation with Washburn Tech, that they would be familiar with this program when they exit?
Mm-hmm. So with Washburn Tech, this semester we're actually not doing anything with them, and that's really because our last semester we had to stop all of our observation hours for the pandemic. We weren't allowing anybody in. And one of the things that, taking away from that class was where we were lacking is it didn't provide a certification that could be used in our center. It does provide an emergency dispatch certification that was approved by Washburn, but this would be more granular. It would provide more classroom time for them and less so much observing, and this would actually enhance that program in the future when we partner with them. That has been a fairly successful program. Even if we're not seeing the dispatchers in our center, they may go to Washburn or MTAA, and we work with them. So we need those dispatchers to be appropriately trained.
How are we doing on our hiring and retention rates right now? Are we seeing, again, that upward intake, or are we staying flat? Where are we at? So right now, I need to knock on wood because I don't want to jinx this. We are actually 2 positions away from being fully staffed. I will tell you that Sheriff Hill allowed us to change our hiring process and we were much more aggressive. We switched a couple things around, our background versus polygraph, and that actually saved us about $450 for each employee or new hire that we were bringing in. So where they may wash out in the polygraph stage, so we're saving funds on our hiring and recruiting, and then we implemented a in-person open interviews the last 3 months. We're actually holding those again October 23rd and 24th, and we've seen a significant increase in the applications that we receive around that time frame.
Still not as much as we saw before the pandemic, but we currently have 8 people in training, and we have 2 more that will start in the next couple weeks. So this is actually the most trainees I have seen in more than 10 years. It's very aggressive. The problem that we do run into is we have people that aren't trainers, that don't really care to train too much, that are training. So we're having to be very, find new ways to partner our folks together. So it is favorable right now. We're actually to a point where we may have to beg to overhire a couple of our FTEs just because we've got some retirements that are coming and it takes so long to train somebody.
Well, I mean, if it wouldn't jinx us, I would almost clap that we're 2 positions
Yeah,
away from.
not yet.
Because, I mean, having been through the lows of where dispatch was at, and thank you for your leadership in that area. Thank you to the sheriff for his leadership in that area, getting that whole area turned around. And commissioners, this was an area that we were really struggling with, and Melanie and her team and the sheriff have really turned that around. And looking at dispatchers that were working 16, 18 hours a day just to keep the operations going. And so this is good news and great news for the county. But when we were working with AMR on our contract negotiations several years ago, there was an initiative in our contract that said we were going to be embedding several AMR dispatchers into our dispatch rather than having them in a call take center in Johnson County. How has that worked out with actuality, having them embedded in?
Well, I think, application versus what we're looking at is 2 different things. Putting AMR in the center has been a challenge for us. I think everybody thought, we're going to put AMR in there and this is going to enhance their communication, and it really didn't, because just because I'm sitting next to somebody doesn't mean that I can tell them you can disregard your ambulance. Things have to be recorded for litigation reasons and for complaint reasons. We want to make sure that we're getting the information right. So we have put a CAD-to-CAD interface in place, which would have both of our computer-aided dispatches speak. That's a project that has been going on for a few years. At this point, we are to a testing phase. On the AMR Logis side, their development is having a hang-up on sending our statuses back and forth between the apparatus. Having the dispatchers in there, there's pros and cons to it. In the original AMR contract, it actually did say that they would provide us with emergency medical dispatching. That was the goal of them coming in, that we all would be emergency medical dispatch. But then we didn't have the funds to implement this type of software. So we are looking at making a few amendments to that contract to maybe make it work a little bit better. Mickey Huber and I work very well together, and John Antrim prior to him. We have a great working relationship, so we're able to work through any things that come up, but the problem that we really run into is there's only 2 medical dispatchers in there. So what do we do with that 3rd medical call? Those medical dispatchers could be providing life-saving instruction, CPR instruction to 2 individuals. That 3rd medical call comes in, and our dispatchers in 911 are not trained to give them life-saving instruction. So we need to be able to give them the training to provide that and augment some of the workload of AMR.
Well, I think that our contract is coming up for a renewal, and so that may be one thing that we want as the commission to look at is the relationship with having AMR embedded into the dispatch, and whether or not that we want to change that contract or amend it. And there's always times to look at what's best for the county and how this best works in practice versus theory. Mm-hmm. And this was kind of a new theory that we threw out there several years ago, having them embedded in. But overall, I mean, I'm very impressed with the presentation. I think this is a program that we should look at very seriously and seeing how we could benefit and implement it. So, thank you.
Thank you.
I had a question. About what % of our fire truck runs are for medical reasons?
So the Topeka Fire Department, they do have the most calls. We have about 20,000 medical calls a year for them. Out of around 180,000 calls total. So we're seeing about 40% of all of our calls, both law, handled by dispatch, whatever, are taken by fire. And then you look at the fire calls versus the medical calls, it's another 50% of that.
This just looks like a good idea. I mean, I don't know how many times I've seen fire trucks and stuff, and there's some minor medical run, and it would just have to save wear and tear on trucks, and it would keep your firemen available for a real fire rather than running off to see somebody with a sprained ankle. So I like the concept. So anyway, well, thank you for the presentation.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Very good.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
before we depart, I don't know if any of our partners, since we do have a lot of our partners here with fire, rural fire, AMR, and law enforcement, whether or not they have any input or anything they would like to add, kind of giving them an opportunity. Or not.
They're shy.
I knew if
Oh, wait a
somebody would
minute.
jump up, it'd be Chief Duke.
Yeah.
Good morning, Commissioners. Craig Duke, Fire Chief Topeka. I just want to tell you this is going to be a great steps forward for the whole community as a whole, the county. This is something that was needed. I came here just over 3 years ago, and very soon after I came, they had a presentation for priority dispatch, and I was a big backer of it because a lot of the departments throughout the state of similar size as Topeka do have this. It does really help with sending the appropriate apparatus at the appropriate time. It's able to distinguish for the dispatcher so there's no mistakes in what is dispatched through the questions. Like Melanie was saying, it's scripted. There's no way they can go wrong. Legally, this company for over 40 years, they've had something like 3 years ago they had 29 lawsuits against them, and they didn't lose one because of the system that they have. So I think this will help the whole county, both law, fire, EMS, getting the appropriate equipment to the appropriate place in a timely manner. It will help us. We still have the calls that we have in with dispatch right now. I don't know if anybody remembers when they were all put together. So dispatch is following what Topeka Fire was wanting them to do, and that's sending those equipment, like Commissioner, like you said, you have a big piece of fire apparatus, maybe 2, maybe 3 going to one call when it's not needed. We are going to be looking at that again with us to see how we are going to dispatch our apparatus appropriately. Topeka Fire is lucky enough that we have EMS aboard our fire apparatus. If there's not an ambulance available, obviously we're going to respond to make sure our citizens are at least receiving some care prior to the apparatus, the EMS apparatus arriving on the scene.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you very much. What's next?
Item 3, consent agenda.
I would move that we approve the consent agenda.
Second?
Motion's been made by Commissioner Rippon, seconded by Commissioner Mays. All in favor say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0. Next item.
Item 4, new business. A, County Clerk number 1, consider all voucher payments.
Commissioners, we have 2 vouchers this morning. The first voucher is for $1,512,533.41. The largest expenditure out of that voucher is the holding accounts with the state of Kansas, which was $845,148.94. The other highlights out of that voucher report: under bridge, we have Claver Construction for $167,328.77, which is 39th Street over Northwest Green Hills Road, over the tributary to Half Day Creek. Under the Department of Correction, we have KBS Constructors at $68,049.06, which are the COVID-related upgrades to the multi-purpose rooms. We also have the KBS for $20,089.65, which are the jail mini courtrooms. KBS Construction for $26,956.22, which is the jail medical wing for HVAC. Under the local health center, we have TSI Incorporated, which is $35,571 for the 2 port-account fit testers. And then finally, under the sewer districts, Bartlett and West for $37,378.17, which is at the Sherwood pump stations and rehabilitation of the pump stations. I don't have any questions regarding that voucher report. The second voucher report is for $79,693.50. This is the CARES Act relief vouchers going to Breakthrough House, Doorstep, Jayhawk Area Jayhawk Area Council of Aging, Children's Discovery Center, Kansas State High School Association, Topeka Habitat for Humanity, and Care Paravel Latin School. The question may arise, why are we doing 2 separate voucher reports instead of having this all on one voucher? We are separating out the CARES Act money from the regular Shawnee County vouchers, so that in the future, if there is ever a question regarding the CARES Act money, we have those segregated into a separate portion, so that the clerk would be able to pull those very quickly and efficiently as to where the CARES Act money was spent. Again, I do not have any questions regarding that voucher, and I would move for approval of the both.
Second. Motion's been made by Commissioner Cook, seconded by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0. Next item.
There are no correction orders today.
Okay.
Item A3, consider authorization and execution of contract C402-2020 with Willis Towers Watson Midwest, Inc. for the insurance proposal binder for underground storage tank liability coverage from October 26, 2020 through October 26, 2021 at a cost of $869. This insurance, Commissioners, is for underground storage tanks located at the courthouse, the Department of Corrections, the election office, and there are 2 at the Stormont Valley Event Center. As I was speaking with our carrier, our Willis representative yesterday, she said, we have had this company for probably 30 years or more. There are very limited a number of companies that are allowed to sell insurance in Kansas. Kansas apparently has very strict underground storage tank requirements for insurance, and we have $1 million per incident, and $1 million aggregate. We have $100,000 for defense, obviously if we have an environmental incident, and we have a $10,000 storage liability deductible. So everything seems okay as far as I'm concerned, and I recommend that you approve have the binder signed.
Any questions?
I'll move for approval.
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Cook, seconded by Commissioner Mays. All in favor, say aye. Motion carries 3-0. Next item.
Item B, Information Technology. Number 1, consider authorization and execution of contract C403-2020 with the Software House International to renew 1,025 annual licenses for Microsoft Exchange Online at a cost of $105,855, utilizing department budgeted funds, with partial funding also being provided by CARES Act funds.
Morning, Commissioners. Mark Price, Information Technology. This is our 3rd year of our Exchange Online Office 365 renewal. This year we did see an increase. Most of those, or all those, were due to signing people up with a higher level of licensing so they could utilize Teams as CARES came in place. You'll notice we only were paying for 2 months for this year. When the shutdown for COVID hit, Microsoft released a unlimited licensing for free for 6 months. So we're coming up to the end of that 6 months. The 2 months gets us to when our regular annual renewal is, and then the annual renewal for the following year is what the increases came to, if that made any sense.
Any questions?
It made sense to me. I'll move for approval.
I'll second. Motion's made by Commissioner Cook, seconded by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0. Next item.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Item C, Sheriff's Office, number 1, acknowledge receipt of correspondence from Sheriff Hill regarding the purchase of 4 2020 Dodge Durango Pursuit AWD vehicles at a total cost of $129,104.72, which is the state contract pricing, with funding from the 2020 department budget.
Good morning, Commissioners. Shane Hubler, Shawnee County Sheriff's Office. It's just a purchase of some vehicles. We were able to, through some openings, budget savings, cost savings measures, we've been able to have some money available to buy, to increase our fleet, not increase our fleet, maintain our fleet, and we're just looking to use our budgeted funds and it's off-state contract pricing for these vehicles. Be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Yes. Commissioner Cook?
Under Sheriff, I just want to make sure that we always ask the question when we look at new vehicles. And we knew we've asked it before, but just for the sake of transparency, why are we purchasing versus leasing, and when would we lease vehicles for the Sheriff's Office as opposed to purchase?
Did some extensive research several years ago. We looked into it, and it wasn't fiscally responsible for us to do it at that point in time. Through the urging of the Commission, we looked at it again. The leasing of vehicles for a fleet our size would be an incredible amount of investment that the county would have to look at for multiple years. With our fleet being around 120 to 150 vehicles, we drive over 1.5 million miles a year. To maintain the refresh rate that we maintain currently, we'd be looking at years that would be over $500,000, and that would just be for the lease. We've worked extensively with Enterprise and looked into some other leasing options as well, and just didn't feel like it was the best fiscally responsible option for the Sheriff's Office and Shawnee County.
Moving forward, do you think that there would ever be a time when we look at not the patrol vehicles, but the other vehicles, the administrative vehicles that the Sheriff's Office has, that those might make sense for leasing? I can see where the patrol vehicles, because you're putting a lot of miles on patrol vehicles, but your administrative and command staff, whether or not that might make sense for some of those leasing options?
Yeah, I believe there's at least a possibility of that happening in the future. Right now, the way that we do our rotation of vehicles, it's able to keep our fleet fresher with minimal amount of cost. But we are exploring whether or not we can. We have several different divisions that aren't primarily emergent vehicles, and we are looking at the option of leasing for those.
Okay. Any other questions?
No, I'll move to approve.
Okay, I'll second. I move to acknowledge the receipt from,
Oh, sorry, yeah.
is from Commissioner Mays, seconded by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you. Next,
Item D, Public Works, number 1, consider authorization and execution of contract C404-2020 with the City of Topeka for the relocation of a water line that is located in an existing City of Topeka water line easement located at Southeast 45th and Southeast Barrington Road at a cost not to exceed $155,401, utilizing various funds.
Good morning, Commissioners. Kurt Niehaus, Director of Public Works. As you know, next year, early next year, we're going to let a project to improve Southeast 45th Street from West Edge Road to East Edge Road. Before we can get into that construction project, we need to relocate all utilities so there's no conflicts with the construction activities. Probably the major utility that needs to be relocated is city water. For the portion of city water that exists within the right-of-way that existed before we bought private easement or public easement from private parties, for that portion, the City of Topeka is responsible for that relocation. For the portion of the water line or the utility outside of the original right-of-way, Shawnee County is responsible for that relocation. The City of Topeka has already let the relocation project, so unit prices are known. And if you take those unit prices and multiply it by the portion, the known portion of the utility outside of our original right-of-way, that's where the 135, 166 came from. I expect when the project's all done and final, we'll be somewhat close to that number. Nevertheless, things can always happen. So we added a 15% contingency to that value, which brings us up to the not to exceed value of $155,441. Now, as with a lot of things in life, there is one caveat. On page 2 of the contract, it talks about the city may pursue an amendment to this agreement should the amount exceed $155,441. How can you exceed a not to exceed amount? I think this is just the city's way of covering themselves for extraordinary circumstances. Jim, would you like to say anything more on that?
Just very briefly, Jim Krause, Shawnee County Councilor. As you know, all of our meetings are recorded. All of our agendas are posted, and from time to time, we do need to go back and take a look at, well, what was actually done in 2012 or 2014. I asked Kurt to emphasize that sentence just for the record, so that it was clear to everyone that although it says not to exceed, there is a possibility that it could be more in the future. And as you know, we work with the city of Topeka on numerous projects, and we have issues like this all the time. We work together in good faith to get the projects completed for the entire community. So it's just a matter of covering each side for as many contingencies as we can think of that might come up. And if something, like Kurt said, extraordinary came up that wasn't anticipated by each side, we've agreed you can come back to us and we will consider it. So I just wanted to make that clear for the record. Thank you, Kurt, for pointing that out.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I'll move for approval.
Second. Motion's been made by Commissioner Cook, seconded by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0.
Thank you.
Kurt. Next item.
Item E, Court Administration, number 1, consider approval of request to pay invoice from CDW Government utilizing state contract for hardware and software items needed to support social distancing and remote hearings for a cost of $50,206.99 utilizing Spark funds.
Good morning, Commissioners. Lee Welch, Court Administrator, 3rd Judicial District. What I have are 13 invoices for items that were all paid under state or ordered under state contract. Total, as noted, is $50,206.99. These expenditures were approved by the Spark Committee, and we're planning to use Spark funds to pay for these. These invoices include large format televisions, conference phones, webcams, laptops, and some video conferencing equipment. All of these will be used to support remote hearings and social distancing. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions?
No.
Okay. I'll move for approval.
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Rippon, seconded by Commissioner Mays. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0. Next item.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item F, Parks and Recreation, number 1, consider authorization and execution of contract C405-2020 with Autocast LLC to implement a mobile application platform used as a guide to facilitate 19 points of interest in Old Prairie Town and Ward Mead Botanical Gardens for a 2-year total cost of $3,515, funded from the Parks for All Foundation.
Good morning, Commissioners. Randy Luby with Shawnee County Parks and Recreation Department. Before you today is approving this AutoCast application. This is something that I know John Bell with Friends of Ward Mead and Old Prairie Town has been trying to do for several years. We're excited for this because it'll give the opportunity for the patrons to spend a little more time in the park and learn a little bit more about the displays that they'd be programming in. This is a pilot program, and it's one that I'm hoping that would be able to carry on to other locations throughout our facilities. I do have John Bell here with Old Prairie Town. He's been instrumental in getting this started, and he'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
John, if you could explain how this program works.
Good morning, Commissioners. John Bell, Recreation Program Supervisor, Old Prairie Town and Great Overland Station. Visitors will have to download a smartphone application, and we will have signage in the park when you come into the park explaining the application and the process. So you download the application, and then what you do is you go to each point of interest. So if you're going to the Pauline Depot, you'll be standing out there. You'll find the point of interest for the Pauline Depot. You'll hit play. And then we're going to make this experience a little different. We do not want to take away from the guided tours that we offer 7 days a week or 6 days a week in the winter. So we're going to use a first-person narrative with this approach. So, hey, I'm Dave from the depot. This is what you'd see in a depot, and kind of come from a first-person perspective versus just getting the verbal tour that you would experience on a guided tour. So each area of significance in the site, at our site, will have a point of interest. And then the garden will be a little more from an educational side of things. Both will be educational, but it won't be the first-person narrative like the buildings will be.
Well, sounds good. I know we've talked about this for a number of years. This would be nice to implement this. If this is successful, do you see this being used at Gage Park or the lake, or? Definitely, okay. All right.
I might add too, one of the things that makes this, we looked at a number of different applications, and this has been something we've been wanting to do for at least 15 years. Washburn University is using the same platform, and there's some places in Lawrence using the same platform. So if you're at Washburn, it shows that Old Prairie Town and the garden is a site too. So we're not the only organization in the community that is utilizing this application.
I think we're seeing more and more of this, and this is a great thing. I mean, even when I went to El Mezcal this week, there's a QR code to download the menu. And so just instead of handing out the menu and just being more applications with QR codes, and we're seeing that. So thank you for your initiative.
John, while you're up there, I had a constituent ask me yesterday if you could go ahead and keep the Garden Glow for one more weekend if you've not torn it down yet. So something to think about.
I would absolutely have loved to continue that. We have actually torn it all down. And the biggest issue with the fall is the tulips have to get planted for the spring. So all the summer annuals had to get pulled up out of the ground. And then early, I think even next week, they're going to start putting tulips in. So we would love to continue that. And we're certainly going to look at that as we grow this event, because I do feel, speaking for our organization and the Friends Board meet, I think this is something that will continue. That event was something that we kind of threw together at the last minute. We were uncertain if we were going to be able to have an event like that due to COVID and the restrictions in place. But it was kind of a last-minute mass chaos event, but it was very successful. We brought over, I'd say, about 7,000 visitors in the 9 days that we had the event. It was great publicity for our site. Got a lot of people out and just enjoying, parks and recreation.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Yeah, it was a great event, and I think it was just something the community needed. They needed a place to go, something to see, and this is a good outdoor event that they could do that. And financially, it was good for us too. Brought in a lot of revenue. So
Yes, you are correct, and I might add to this AutoCast system is an example of how the Parks for All Foundation, the Friends Ward Mead, those efforts can enhance Old Prairie Town and make and Board Mead Botanical Garden a better site using foundation funds and piggybacking off the success from our foundation events. So.
Very good. Thank you. Oh, wow. We've got more business here. I'll move for approval.
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Rippon, seconded by Commissioner Mays. All in favor say aye. Those opposed, motion carries. 3-0. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Thank you, Randy. Next item.
Item F2, consider authorization and execution of contract C406-2020, amendment to contract C56-2019 with Madman Enterprises LLC for photo booth services for an additional term through December 31, 2021, for the county to reserve the right to postpone or cancel any event or activity as needed due to COVID-19 without a penalty.
Again, good morning, Commissioners. Randy Luby. And when she reads that, that's not Mad Magazine, was what I thought you were going to say.
Oh, I did say that.
But
Oh.
but this is our Say Cheese photo booth that we have at all of our events. If you've ever been to one of these, they are the hit of the event in most cases, and this is just extending that contract one more year. Be glad to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions?
I'll move for approval.
One second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Cook, seconded by Commissioner Mays. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0. Thank you,
Thank you,
Randy.
Commissioner.
Next item.
Item G, elections. Number 1, consider authorization and execution of contract C407-2020, lease agreement with Mainline Printing, Inc. for temporary use of parking lot for 2020 general election, with a portion of the funds paid to Mainline to be used to make parking lot driveway repairs at a total cost of $6,000 with funding from the grant funds.
Morning, Commissioners. Andrew Howell, Election Commissioner in Shawnee County. As we mentioned earlier, Mainline has been very helpful in trying to assist us with making sure that we've got a good location. There is some expense. That particular driveway is in pretty bad shape, and they've agreed to try to work with us to try to get that taken care of. I know we're going to have some conversation with the city about that, but we think this is a reasonable effort on their part. We really appreciate their willingness to jump in and I think deal with some things maybe quicker than they would like to have. And I don't know, Jim, if you want to mention anything further, but that's pretty much the story. This is eligible for Sparks funds, so we expect to pay for it that way, and it's just for that kind of extended use as well as making the repairs necessary to that driveway to make sure that it's safe for people to drive through there, because it does need some repair.
Any questions?
Andrew, is this going to be like pothole patching or crack sealing type of stuff, or is this like rip it out and replace it?
I think there will probably be, and they're also going to great lengths to try to help us find some additional entry into that parking lot. So there's a lot of things that have to be done to make it safe for a lot of cars to come and go. It probably is going to need some fairly major repairs done. So we're just trying to be helpful. Frankly, they've let us use that parking lot for years, and it's actually not safe for travel at the moment, the condition it's in. So we're just trying to make sure that it's functional for a large number of vehicles.
Is $6,000 going to be enough to cover that? Or?
Probably not. Quite frankly, it probably won't. But we're just trying to be helpful and be good neighbors.
And is it possible to get this done in time for for the election? We're looking at just a couple weeks, so.
They are giving it every effort. We're hoping to get the city to kind of help us expedite some of that. I don't know if we'll have it ready by Monday, but we're hoping to at least have a majority of that period if we can. Additionally, like I said, they have some other options, other entry off of Kansas Avenue. There are some other things that we're looking at, but it's certainly helpful having that access right across from the election office too. So we'll do the best we can in fairly short order to try to make as much progress as we can.
Okay. Has your department talked with Kurt and his department at all about helping to speed this up at all? Or?
We can certainly visit with them.
I'm sure he's got the knowledge and know-how that maybe could help a little bit. So
we'll have the conversation.
Okay.
I'll move for approval.
I'll second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Cook, seconded by Commissioner Mays. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0. Thank you.
Thanks.
Next item.
Item 5, administrative communications.
Do we have anyone here that would like to speak?
Courtney House, Director of Public Works, late today, maybe guessing around 5 or 6 o'clock. Southeast 69th Street between the east and west intersections with Pollen Road will reopen. a bridge project that has been taking place there since June 22nd will be complete. Again, the road will be open. The bridge looks great, and I hope the residents in the area appreciate the final product. Thank you.
Thank you, Kurt.
Andrew Howell, Shawnee County Election Commissioner. Just a reminder, early voting in the office starts next week on Monday at 8 a.m. Just want to remind everybody, it's a great option. A lot of people use it. It's usually fairly quick and painless process. 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. for the next 2 weeks. So if you want to vote early, you certainly can come to the location at 3420 Southwest Van Buren and get your voting done with a little earlier. So that's an option. Just want to remind everybody about that. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Mays?
Nothing from me today.
Commissioner Cook?
Yes, I do have one item. In August, Cox Communication reached out to me regarding their application that they were making to the state for broadband expansion, and I wrote a letter of support for it, and I just received word that there's going to be a formal announcement next week, but I've been allowed to tease it out a little bit, that there is, in fact, been a grant from the state for Cox Communication to add broadband to 2 different areas in North Shawnee County, and this will affect the Seaman School District and a lot of the households around the middle school and the high school. And so this is a great announcement for Shawnee County as we look at a partnership between the state and Cox Communication with the support of the county for the expansion of broadband around the Seaman area. And again, there will be a more formal announcement from Cox next week, but this will affect a lot of households as people are working from home and kids are working on their homework from home as well.
Very good.
Thank you.
Well, I zoomed in on the Kansas County Association's annual conference this year. It was a little different doing it over a TV screen. I liked the conference because I'm able to talk to other county commissioners, which I can't do here in this county. So it's good to be able to talk to some of them, and we all have a lot of the same problems. We really didn't have that opportunity yesterday, though, with the Zoom meeting, and you had over 100 people tuning in on the Zoom. So, but it was interesting and to hear what's going on under the dome and also on a national level, and. There's a lot of good things that are on the horizon, and we'll keep you apprised of those different issues as they come up. One thing I wanted to also mention is this is the last day to get your census in. This is it. The courts have ruled on it, and in order for those in the federal government to get all their reports done by the end of the year, they need it done today. So this is it. I don't think we have a need for an executive session, so we are adjourned.